Karen's voice sliced through the hum of the airplane like a knife through butter. "Do your job right, or I'll have you fired before we land." The cabin fell silent, every passenger's head swiveling toward row 12, where Karen, a middle-aged woman with a designer handbag and a sneer to match, loomed over the flight attendant. Her two friends, Donna and Greg, snickered from their seats, egging her on. The flight attendant, Amara, stood calm but steely, her dark eyes locked on Karen's. She adjusted her navy blazer, her name tag glinting under the cabin lights, and said nothing. Not yet. Amara had seen this before too many times. As a black woman in her late 30s, she'd navigated her share of entitled passengers over her decade with Horizon Air. But today, on this packed red-eye from Chicago to Seattle, something felt different. The air was thick with tension, and Karen's words weren't just loud, they were personal. "I bet you barely passed training," Karen spat, her voice dripping with condescension. "People like you always get a free pass, don't they?" The jab hit like a punch, and a few passengers gasped. Amara's jaw tightened, but her training held firm. She'd learned to swallow venom like this, to keep her composure even when the words stung. She glanced at the spilled coffee Karen had accidentally knocked over, the liquid pooling on the tray table, soaking into a magazine. Karen had demanded a refill, then complained it was too cold, too weak, too everything, each complaint laced with a smug superiority that made Amara's blood simmer. "Ma'am," Amara said evenly, "I'll get you another coffee. Let's keep this respectful." Her voice was steady, but inside, she was a storm. She'd worked too hard, climbed too far, to let someone like Karen unravel her. Donna leaned forward, her bleached blonde hair bouncing as she chimed in. "Respectful? You're the one who messed up her order. Maybe if you paid attention instead of chatting with your little friend back there." She gestured toward another flight attendant, a young Latina named Sophia, who was assisting a mother with a crying toddler. "You'd actually do your job." Greg, slouched in his window seat, chuckled. "Yeah, maybe they should stick to cleaning the plane." His laugh was lazy, cruel, and it landed like a spark in dry grass. A murmur rippled through the cabin. A man in a business suit 2 rows back shook his head, muttering under his breath. A teenage girl across the aisle gripped her phone, her thumb hovering over the record button. Amara's fingers twitched around the coffee pot she'd retrieved from the galley. She wanted to fire back, to tell them exactly how many hours she'd spent training, how many emergencies she'd handled, how many lives she'd kept safe at 30,000 feet. But she didn't. Not because she couldn't, because she wouldn't. Not yet. "Sir, ma'am," she said, addressing all three, "I'm here to ensure everyone's safety and comfort. Let's focus on that." She turned to clean the mess on Karen's tray, but Karen wasn't done. "Oh, safety," Karen scoffed, loud enough for the whole plane to hear. "You're barely qualified to pour coffee, let alone handle an emergency. I've flown first class on real airlines, and trust me, they don't hire people like you for important roles." The cabin went dead quiet. Even the hum of the engines seemed to fade. Amara froze, the rag in her hand dripping coffee onto the floor. "People like you." The words hung in the air, heavy and toxic. Sophia, who'd been making her way down the aisle, stopped short, her eyes wide with disbelief. The teenage girl hit record. Amara straightened, her face a mask of calm, but her heart pounded. She'd heard those words before on buses, in stores, in whispered asides her whole life. But here, in her uniform on her flight, they cut deeper. She glanced at the passengers around her. Some looked away, uncomfortable. Others stared, waiting for her to snap. The man in the suit was now typing furiously on his laptop, his brow furrowed. "Ma'am," Amara said, her voice low but firm, I'm going to ask you one last time to lower your voice and treat me with respect. If you can't, we'll need to address this when we land." Karen laughed. A sharp, barking sound. "Address this? Oh, honey, you're the one who'll be addressed. I know the CEO of this airline. One call and you're gone." She pulled out her phone, waving it like a weapon. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." Donna nodded, smirking. "You're in over your head, sweetheart. Stick to serving drinks." Amara's eyes flicked to the phone, then back to Karen's face. Something shifted in her expression, just a flicker, but it was there. A knowing, a spark. She set the coffee pot down with deliberate care and leaned in slightly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'd be careful about making threats you can't back up." Karen blinked, caught off guard, but recovered quickly. "Oh, I can back it up. You'll see." She tapped her phone screen, scrolling through her contacts with exaggerated confidence. "I've got connections, unlike you." The tension in the cabin was suffocating now. Passengers shifted in their seats, some whispering to each other, others craning their necks to watch. Sophia stepped closer, her hand resting on Amara's shoulder, a silent show of support. The teenage girl's phone was still recording, capturing every word, every gesture. The man in the suit looked up, his eyes meeting Amara's for a brief moment. He gave her a small nod, as if to say, "You've got this." But Amara didn't need the encouragement. She'd been here before, not just on planes, but in boardrooms, in meetings, in every space where people underestimated her because of her skin, her gender, her quiet strength. She'd built something from nothing, and she wasn't about to let 3 entitled passengers tear it down. The plane hit a patch of turbulence, and the seatbelt sign dinged on. Amara used the moment to step back, her voice calm but commanding. "Everyone, please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts. We'll resume service once it's safe." Karen rolled her eyes but complied, muttering under her breath. "This isn't over," she hissed, loud enough for Amara to hear. Donna and Greg exchanged smug looks, clearly enjoying the show. They thought they'd won this round. They had no idea what was coming. As Amara made her way back to the galley, Sophia caught up with her. "You okay?" she whispered, her eyes searching Amara's face. Amara gave a tight smile. "I'm fine. They're not worth it." But her hands were shaking slightly as she poured a fresh pot of coffee. She wasn't fine, not entirely. The words had cut deep, and the weight of every eye in the cabin was heavy on her shoulders. She'd spent years proving herself, climbing from a small-town girl with big dreams to a position few could imagine. And yet, here she was, still fighting the same battles. Sophia hesitated, then lowered her voice. "You don't have to take that, you know. You're not just a flight attendant." Amara's lips twitched, a hint of a real smile breaking through. "I know," she said softly, "and they're about to find out." Back in row 12, Karen was already typing on her phone, her fingers flying across the screen. "I'm emailing corporate right now," she announced loudly, ensuring everyone could hear. "This is unacceptable. They'll hear about her attitude." Donna nodded approvingly. "Make sure you mention how incompetent she is. I mean, really, who lets people like that work on a plane?" Greg leaned back, grinning. "Bet she's gone by next week. Good riddance." The teenage girl across the aisle, still recording, whispered to her mother, "This is going viral." Her mother shushed her but didn't stop her from filming. The man in the suit was now on his phone, his expression unreadable. The cabin buzzed with whispers, the tension building like a storm about to break. Amara returned with a fresh tray of drinks, her composure flawless. She handed out water and soda to other passengers, her smile professional but distant. When she reached row 12, Karen looked up, her face smug. "You're lucky I don't sue this airline for emotional distress," she said, loud enough for the whole cabin to hear. "You've ruined this flight for me." Amara didn't flinch. "I'm sorry you feel that way, ma'am. If there's anything specific I can do to improve your experience, please let me know." Karen snorted. "Improve? You could start by knowing your place." The words were a match tossed into gasoline. The teenage girl gasped audibly, her phone still rolling. Sophia, standing at the back of the cabin, clenched her fists. Even the man in the suit looked up, his eyes narrowing. Amara, though, didn't waver. She leaned in slightly, her voice calm but laced with steel. "My place is ensuring this flight runs smoothly, and I'm very good at it." Karen opened her mouth to retort, but the captain's voice crackled over the intercom, cutting her off. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some unexpected turbulence. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. Flight attendants, prepare for a possible emergency landing." The cabin erupted in murmurs. Passengers exchanged worried glances, and Karen's smugness faltered. Donna gripped the armrest, her face paling. Greg muttered a curse under his breath. Amara, however, sprang into action. She moved swiftly down the aisle, checking seatbelts, calming nervous passengers, and securing loose items. Her training kicked in, her movements precise and confident. Sophia followed her lead, but her eyes kept darting to row 12, where Karen was now whispering frantically to her friends. "This is her fault," Karen hissed. "If she'd been doing her job, we wouldn't be in this mess." Amara overheard but didn't react. She had bigger things to worry about. The turbulence was getting worse, the plane shuddering as if caught in a giant's fist. Passengers gripped their seats, some praying, others clutching loved ones. The teenage girl had stopped recording, her phone forgotten as she hugged her mother. The man in the suit was now standing, helping an elderly woman secure her oxygen mask. And then it happened. A loud bang echoed from the back of the plane, followed by a sharp jolt. Screams filled the cabin as the oxygen masks dropped from the overhead compartments. Panic set in, but Amara's voice cut through the chaos like a beacon. "Everyone, stay calm. Put on your masks and secure your belts. We've got this under control." Her authority was undeniable. Passengers obeyed, their fear tempered by her confidence. She moved through the cabin, helping a child with his mask, reassuring a sobbing woman, checking the overhead bins. Karen, Donna, and Greg sat frozen, their bravado gone. Karen's phone slipped from her hand, clattering to the floor. The plane leveled out, but the tension didn't ease. Amara made her way to the intercom, her voice steady as she addressed the cabin. "We're stabilizing, but please keep your masks on and stay seated. We're preparing for an emergency landing in Denver. You're in good hands." Karen's face was ashen now, her earlier confidence replaced by fear. Donna was hyperventilating, and Greg was staring out the window, his knuckles white. Amara caught their eyes as she passed, but she didn't linger. She had a job to do. In the galley, Sophia grabbed her arm. "You're incredible," she whispered. "They don't deserve you." Amara gave a small, tired smile. "They don't know me," she said, "but they will." The plane descended toward Denver, the cabin still buzzing with nervous energy. Amara and Sophia worked in tandem, preparing for the landing, their movements a well-practiced dance. Passengers watched them with newfound respect, their earlier judgments forgotten in the face of crisis. The teenage girl's mother leaned over and whispered, "Thank you. You're a hero." Amara nodded, her focus unwavering. But inside, she was counting down the minutes, not to the landing but to what would come after. When the plane touched down in Denver, the cabin erupted in applause. Passengers unbuckled their seatbelts, some hugging, others crying with relief. Amara stood at the front, her posture straight, her face calm, but her eyes were on row 12. Karen, Donna, and Greg were the last to disembark. Karen clutched her handbag, her face a mix of embarrassment and defiance. "This isn't over," she muttered as she passed Amara. "I'm still filing that complaint." Amara didn't respond. She didn't need to. As the passengers filed out, the man in the suit approached her. He extended his hand, his voice low but clear. "You handled that like a pro. I'm James Carter, Horizon Air's legal counsel. I saw everything." Amara shook his hand, her expression unreadable. "Thank you, Mr. Carter. I appreciate that." He leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I also know who you are, Miss Thompson. The board's been singing your praises for years. Don't worry, these three are about to learn a hard lesson." Amara's lips curved into a faint smile. "Let's make sure they do." As Karen, Donna, and Greg stepped off the plane, they were met by airport security. Karen's face paled as an officer approached, holding a tablet with a video playing the teenage girl's recording, now uploaded and spreading like wildfire across social media. The headline screamed, "Passengers harass hero flight attendant during emergency." Karen's phone buzzed with notifications, but she didn't look at it. She was too busy staring at the security officer, who was now reading her rights. Donna and Greg exchanged panicked glances, their earlier smugness gone. The crowd of passengers gathered nearby, some whispering, others glaring. Amara watched from the jetway, her arms crossed. She'd spent years building Horizon Air from a struggling regional carrier to a respected name in the industry. She'd done it quietly, behind the scenes, using her inheritance and business savvy to buy out the company when it was on the brink of bankruptcy. She'd kept her role as CEO a secret, preferring to work as a flight attendant to stay connected to the heart of the operation. To the passengers, she was just Amara Thompson, the woman who poured their coffee. To the board, she was the visionary who'd saved their jobs. And now, to Karen, Donna, and Greg, she was something else entirely. The security officer handed Amara a file. "Ma'am, we've got their statements, but this video is damning. They're facing charges for disorderly conduct and harassment. Anything you'd like to add?" Amara glanced at the trio, who were now being escorted away, their faces a mix of shock and shame. She thought of every slur, every slight, every moment she'd had to swallow her pride to keep moving forward. She thought of her grandmother, who'd cleaned houses to put her through college, and her father, who'd told her she could be anything she wanted, no matter what the world said. "Just make sure they understand," she said softly, "that actions have consequences." The officer nodded, and Amara turned back to the plane. There was work to be done, passengers to debrief, reports to file, a company to run. But as she walked back into the cabin, her head held high, she felt something shift. The weight of those words, "people like you," was still there, but it was lighter now, because she knew who she was, and soon the world would too. The teenage girl's video went viral, amassing millions of views by morning. The comments were filled with praise for Amara, calls for justice, and demands for Horizon Air to take action. But Amara didn't need the internet to validate her. She'd already taken action, years ago, when she decided to rise above the hate and build something unstoppable. As she prepared for the next flight, her phone buzzed with a message from James Carter. "Board meeting tomorrow. They want to discuss a public statement. Your call, Ms. Thompson." Amara smiled. It was time to step out of the shadows. The Denver airport buzzed with activity as Amara stepped into the terminal, her navy blazer slightly wrinkled from the chaotic flight. The adrenaline from the emergency landing still coursed through her veins, but her mind was already shifting to what came next. She wasn't just a flight attendant tidying up a cabin. She was Amara Thompson, the woman who'd turned Horizon Air from a failing regional carrier into a beacon of excellence. And now, with the viral video exposing Karen, Donna, and Greg's behavior, the world was about to learn her story. She made her way to the crew lounge, where Sophia was waiting, her eyes wide with a mix of awe and excitement. "Amara, you've seen it, right?" Sophia held up her phone, the screen glowing with the teenage girl's video, now at 3.2 million views and climbing. The comments were a flood of outrage and support, with hashtags like Justice for Amara and Horizon Air Hero trending across social media. "They're calling you a legend," Sophia said, grinning. Amara glanced at the screen, her expression unreadable. "It's not about being a legend," she said quietly. "It's about doing what's right." She sat down, rubbing her temples. The weight of the day Karen's venom, the turbulence, the emergency landing was catching up to her. But there was no time to rest. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from James Carter, Horizon Air's legal counsel. "Media's requesting a statement. We need to move fast. Call me." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "You're not going to let those three get away with it, are you?" Amara's lips curved into a faint smile. "They're already paying a price. But this isn't just about them. It's bigger than that." She stood, smoothing her blazer. "I need to make a call." In a quiet corner of the lounge, Amara dialed James. He picked up on the first ring. "Amara, the board's in a frenzy. That video's everywhere, and passengers from the flight are posting their own accounts. We've got enough to bury those three, but we need your input. Do we go public with your role as CEO?" Amara hesitated. She'd kept her ownership of Horizon Air a secret for years, choosing to work on the front lines to stay grounded, to understand the passengers and crew who made the airline run. Revealing her identity now would change everything: her anonymity, her ability to blend in, the way people saw her. But as she thought of Karen's words, "people like you," and the smug entitlement on her face, she knew silence wasn't an option. "Do it," she said finally. "But not just about me. Make it about the values Horizon stands for. No one gets to treat our crew or anyone like that." James chuckled softly. "You got it, boss. I'll draft a statement. And Amara, the board's behind you 100%. You've got a lot of fans up here." She hung up, her mind racing. The statement would be a start, but it wasn't enough. She wanted to do more than expose Karen, Donna, and Greg. She wanted to change the conversation, to show that respect and dignity weren't negotiable, no matter who you were or where you sat on the plane. By the next morning, the story had exploded. Major news outlets picked up the video, running headlines like "Flight Attendant Hero Faces Racist Harassment" and "Horizon Air Passengers Regret Mocking the Wrong Woman." Amara's name was everywhere, though her role as CEO remained under wraps for now. She boarded another flight, this time to New York, where Horizon's headquarters awaited. The board meeting was set for that afternoon, and she knew it would be a turning point. On the flight, passengers whispered as she passed, some offering shy smiles, others thanking her quietly. The teenage girl from the previous flight, Mia, was on board with her mother, heading to visit family. Mia approached Amara during a quiet moment, her phone clutched tightly. "I'm sorry I posted the video without asking," she said, her voice trembling. I couldn't believe how they treated you." Amara knelt slightly to meet Mia's eyes. "You did the right thing," she said. "You showed the world what really happened. That takes courage." Mia's mother, standing nearby, nodded. "We're so proud of you, Amara. You handled that with grace I could never muster." Amara smiled, but inside, she felt the weight of their words. Grace was a choice, one she'd made over and over, even when it hurt. She thanked them and moved on, her mind already on the boardroom. At Horizon's headquarters, the boardroom was a sleek, modern space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. The board members, mostly older men in tailored suits, stood as Amara entered, their faces a mix of respect and curiosity. James Carter was there, along with the PR director, Lee Gwyn, who was scrolling through her tablet, tracking the media frenzy. Amara, the chairman, Robert Hayes, began, "You've put Horizon in the spotlight, not just for the incident but for how you handled it. We're ready to release a statement naming you as CEO, but we need your final approval." Amara took a deep breath, scanning the room. These were the people who'd trusted her vision when she'd bought the airline, who'd supported her unconventional choice to work as a flight attendant. They knew her story, how she'd grown up in a small Chicago neighborhood, how her grandmother's sacrifices and her father's encouragement had fueled her ambition. They knew she'd faced skepticism and prejudice every step of the way, yet she'd built an empire without losing her humanity. "Let's do it," she said. "But the statement needs to be clear. Horizon Air stands for respect, for every passenger, every employee, every person. What happened on that flight wasn't just about it's about a culture that lets people like those passengers think they can treat others as less." Lisa nodded, typing notes. "We'll emphasize your leadership and Horizon's zero-tolerance policy for discrimination. We're also proposing a new training program for passengers and crew, focusing on diversity and respect. Your name could be on it." Amara considered it. "Call it the Horizon Unity Program. Make it about building bridges, not just punishing bad behavior." The board murmured in approval. James leaned forward, his eyes gleaming. "And about our 3 friends from row 12? They're facing charges, but the public's calling for more. Their names are out there: Karen Mitchell, Donna Reynolds, Greg Harper. Social media's tearing them apart." Amara's expression hardened. She'd seen the posts, the comments, the memes. Karen's LinkedIn profile had been unearthed, revealing her as a mid-level marketing exec who'd boasted about her connections. Donna ran a small boutique, now flooded with negative reviews. Greg, a real estate agent, was losing clients by the hour. The internet was merciless, but Amara didn't feel pity. They'd made their choices. "Let the legal system handle them," she said. "But make sure their actions are a warning. Horizon won't tolerate harassment, period." The statement went live that evening, and the response was seismic. Horizon Air CEO Amara Thompson, who posed as flight attendant, takes stand against racism, blazed across news sites. The video of Amara's calm, commanding presence during the emergency landing was replayed endlessly, juxtaposed with Karen's vitriol. Talk shows invited Amara to speak, but she declined, letting the statement and her actions stand for themselves. Back in Denver, Karen, Donna, and Greg faced a grim reality. The charges: disorderly conduct, harassment, and, for Karen, an additional count of making false threats carried hefty fines and potential jail time. Their public shaming was worse. Karen's employer issued a statement distancing themselves from her behavior, hinting at consequences. Donna's boutique was boycotted, her social media accounts deactivated under the pressure. Greg's real estate firm dropped him, citing reputational damage. But the real reckoning came at a press conference Horizon held a week later. Amara stood at the podium, her navy blazer replaced by a tailored suit, her CEO title now public. The room was packed with reporters, cameras flashing as she spoke. "Horizon Air is more than a company," she said, her voice steady but passionate. "It's a community, and in our community, no one is above respect. No one is less than because of their race, their job, or their seat number." What happened on Flight 472 was a failure of character, not just of 3 passengers, but of a system that lets prejudice fester. "We're changing that, starting now." She announced the Horizon Unity Program, a mandatory training for all employees and an optional course for passengers, offering discounts to those who completed it. The program would cover cultural sensitivity, conflict resolution, and the history of discrimination in public spaces. "We can't change hearts overnight," Amara said, "but we can change behaviors, and that's where it starts." The audience erupted in applause, but Amara's eyes were on the crowd, searching for the faces of her crew, her passengers, the people who'd stood by her. Mia and her mother were there, invited as guests, their smiles bright. Sophia stood in the back, wiping away a tear. Even James Carter, usually stoic, gave her a nod of pride. As the press conference ended, a reporter shouted, "Ms. Thompson, what do you say to Karen Mitchell and her group? Any message for them?" Amara paused, her gaze steady. "I say this, you underestimated me, but more importantly, you underestimated what's right. You thought your words could tear me down, but they only built me up. And they built this moment, where we're all reminded that actions have consequences and so does silence." The room fell quiet, her words sinking in. Then the questions resumed, but Amara stepped back, letting Lisa take over. She'd said what she needed to say. In the weeks that followed, the Horizon Unity program rolled out to acclaim. Passengers signed up in droves, eager to be part of something bigger. Amara returned to the skies, not as a flight attendant, but as a visible CEO, meeting with crews, inspecting operations, and listening to passengers. She didn't hide anymore, not her story, not her strength. Karen, Donna, and Greg faded from the headlines, their lives irrevocably changed. Karen pleaded guilty to reduced charges, paying a steep fine and issuing a public apology that felt hollow to most. Donna closed her boutique, unable to recover from the backlash. Greg moved to a new city, starting over with a tarnished name. The internet moved on, but the lesson lingered. Amara's story, though, grew. Schools invited her to speak, sharing her journey from a Chicago kid to a trailblazing CEO. She told them about her grandmother, her father, the people who'd believed in her when the world didn't. She told them about Flight 472, not as a moment of triumph, but as a reminder that change starts with courage. Hers, Mia's, even the passengers who'd spoken up. One evening, as she boarded a flight to Chicago, a young black girl approached her, clutching a Horizon Air badge she'd gotten from a school event. "Ms. Thompson," she said shyly, "I want to be like you someday." Amara knelt, her heart swelling. "You already are," she said. "Just keep being you. And don't let anyone tell you where your place is." As the plane took off, Amara looked out at the city lights below, a tapestry of lives and stories. She thought of Karen's words, of the turbulence, of the masks dropping from the ceiling. She thought of the applause, the viral video, the boardroom. And she thought of that girl, her eyes bright with possibility. The fight wasn't over, not for her, not for anyone. But it was a start. And as the plane soared into the night, Amara knew she was ready for whatever came next. What do you think? Where do we draw the line between standing up for what's right and letting justice take its course? How do we heal the divides that fuel moments like these?